Okay.
I think it's good.
Oh, wrong Google. I'm good.
We're in, so I'm going to, let you do the fucking intro since I I screwed it up, so
Okay.
Whenever you're ready.
Welcome back to the second episode of the Geeson Brothers podcast. On this episode, we're going to go on more of a deep dive on Chaitin to figure out the intro and more or less the background on him. Now, last time we more or less just focused on myself and my background. So I guess starting out, you're in construction now, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Now, is that where you started from the beginning, or did you think you were going to do something else out of high school?
Yeah. So my story is a little bit different than yours because I think everybody saw me ending up in construction, right? I mean, I started working for contractors in our town, same age as you, and for some of the same people, right? We worked for one contractor specifically who helped us both out significantly.
Yes.
Had a huge impact on our lives. But yeah, we started working for him at 12, 13. He would, we'd go out and do side stuff for him on the weekends and really whatever we could do. So yeah, I started in construction for sure, really early. So and I'm still in it. So it was, again, people definitely saw me going there. I saw myself going there. I knew that was the end game. Well, not end game. I'm not done yet. But, I knew I would end up in some sort of fashion in the construction industry for sure. And, I mean, as you know, and most of the people that are going to be listening to this first few, I joined the Marine Corps. That wasn't my original plan at all.
Yeah, you know what? Actually, and I remember the story of going to the recruiting station for that.
Mm-hmm. That's right, because you came with me.
Yeah, I did. Good old Sergeant Watt.
Yeah. Which actually, oddly enough, he just shared and liked one of our podcast things, so I'm sure he's paying attention.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, shout out to him.
Yeah.
He started the whole Marine Corps adventure for us.
Yep.
But what really changed? Because your path was going towards college.
Yes.
And it was one semester? What happened there?
Yeah. So I did go one semester to college for construction management. Again, I knew it was construction. I enjoyed construction, so I figured why not. And the reasons that I chose the college that I chose and were not, I was honestly just lazy. I was lazy. There were other colleges that had better programs, but when I applied to a couple different colleges, and all the colleges came back and said, hey, your application looks good, but we need you to submit an essay. We need you to do these steps. And this specific college came back and said, you're good. And I said, okay, that's the one I'm going to. So, but yeah, I did go to college for one semester. And it was great. I met a lot of great people. I still talk to some of them today. I miss a lot of them. It was like a little family we had there. But anyway, I did one semester, and at the closeout of the semester, they send you the bill for the semester. And at the time, that bill was more money than I thought that I would make, and I definitely didn't have it. So it was only $2,500 or something in that realm. It was between $2,000 and $3,000, and that was unheard of for me. So immediately I started looking for other options. I was like, this isn't going to work. I'm definitely not going to be able to pay for next semester because all of my financial aid that I was given was used up in that first semester, and I still owed. So I knew I wasn't going to be able, and I was not doing student loans. You know what I mean? That was not something I ever wanted to do. I didn't want to put myself in debt like that. So yeah, that one semester was great. And as soon as I got out of it and got the bill, I started figuring something else out. And the military was a better option because, they'll pay for me to go back to college. So that was my original thought was I got done with that semester, looked at the bill and went, somebody else is going to pay for this. And so I started researching the branches of military and what were the best options. And again, stupid decisions. I should have joined the Air Force, the Army, the Navy, anything else. But I chose Marine Corps simply because one of our buddies had joined the Marine Corps. And I knew that if I joined any other branch, he was going to make fun of me. So I said, all right, well, if he did it, I'm doing it. And that was that. So, yeah, I remember you and I, we drove up to 2 hours. It was a 2-hour trip back to where I went to school. We had to go all the way back to where I went to college.
The same town.
To see the recruiter because that was the nearest recruiter. We drove up there and I told him, hey.
Can we pause there for a second?
Yeah.
I just want to highlight the fact that we grew up in an area that was that isolated that the closest military recruiter was 2 hours away.
2 hours, yeah.
Closest grocery store, like major grocery store, an hour away.
Right, yep.
So, and sorry, you can go back in.
Yeah, no, that was, so, traveling wasn't an issue for us. But yeah, you and I both, when we make our mind up on something, it's all in or nothing, right? So we drove up there that night, and in our old, was it a 1980 Jeep, something like that? It was
1992 Jeep Cherokee Rolado.
Yeah.
4x4.
Yeah, but the 4-wheel drive wasn't working at the time, so.
No, it was not. It's 2-wheel drive, and that thing was just.
Well, the way there wasn't bad. Anyway, we get up there, and I talked to the recruiter, and I said, hey, listen, I'm signing up. And he goes, oh well, let me talk you through some things. And I said, no, give me the paperwork. Like, it's that simple, or I'm going to go across the street and to the next guy. So just sign me up. So he did. He signed up the paperwork. We filled everything out. And then, the way home, we had gotten like 1.5 feet of snow while we were in there, and nobody had plowed because it was like midnight. So we drove home.
Which we went up, I think, after school one day, after I got out.
Yeah, it was like, we left at like 4 or 5 o'clock because it was basketball
and a 2-hour drive.
Yeah, 2-hour drive there.
And then we were there for a good 3 hours doing all the paperwork, and then a nice long drive back. It was a good 3-4 hours on the way back. That drive was so long.
Right, it was terrible. So, filled out all that. He sent me down to MEPS a week or two later, which is, by the way, MEPS is like the processing station. You go get medically checked to make sure that you're fit and able to serve. It's a bunch of stupid stuff. And then you take the ASVAB, which is the entry test that you have to take. You have to score certain, the Marine Corps has the lowest score. So I didn't set the bar very high, but I passed everything, took the test, got a really high score on the test. So I got back and the recruiter was like, you need to do something that's worth, what you got. So you should do Intel, because that was like the best thing that you could do. And I said, nah, I don't really want to do. I want to be at a desk. That's not something I ever thought that I wanted to do.
Fast forward.
Yeah. Anyway, long story short, joined the Marine Corps. I took a job that requires the lowest possible score on the test to get in, just because he was offering a $4,000 bonus, which at the time, again, I owed $2,500 in student, in debt for the school.
At least you got a bonus.
So $4,000 was like, whew, I'm on track to be a millionaire, right? So I took that and I ran with it, did my 4 years, and decided to get out. So yeah, that was a good time.
Okay, so now 4 years later, after a semester of college.
Yeah, 1 semester.
and maybe I remember you came back beginning of December. I think by February you were out.
Yeah, so the way it works when you're getting out is, whatever amount of time off, PTO.
Oh, no, I meant like you got off of college in December and you shipped out in February.
Absolutely,
right?
Yeah. So beginning of December, it was like December 14th or 15th or something like that. The first semester ended. It takes a week or two before I got my bill in. And so, by January 1st, I had gotten the bill and I was, okay, I got to do something else. So I went to MEPS, all that, in the first couple of weeks of January. And by the 3rd week of February, I was already gone.
Yeah, and that's just, you put your mind to something and it's...
Yeah, that's it.
As quick as possible, you're getting into it.
Yeah, because he lets you pick your job, right? Which I did. I picked recon at first, right? Because I thought I want to be hardcore. I want to be out there doing the crazy stuff. So recon is like, kind of, I don't want to compare it to the SEALs because it's not as crazy, but it is similar in in the aspect of what they do. You know what I mean? It's just not quite special forces or anything like that. But it is one of the hardest jobs, physically.
One of the hardest infantry jobs in the military.
Yeah. So
in the Marine Corps.
Right. I had picked that. But again, he came to me a week after I picked that job. I was supposed to leave in June. He came to me a week after I picked that job and said, "Hey, you can leave next week, but you got to take this job driving trucks, and I can give you $4,000." And I said, "All right, I'll pack my bags." so I left. Yeah, and then I did 4 years there.
Okay,
Plenty of stories there, but we can do that later.
After 4 years,
Yep.
and we can dive in on the Marine Corps on a whole like that.
Yeah.
We could sit here for days and days and episodes, but
Right.
after the military, 4 years, where did you go from there?
So on the way out of the Marine Corps, I knew that I needed a job, right? And I knew that I was married, and I wanted to make sure that my wife and I could move somewhere that we could afford to buy a house immediately, because I didn't want to be renting, and that we could, both get decent jobs. She could go to school, because she was going to use her GI Bill to go to school to do what she wants to do. And I eventually may have done that. But right out the gate, I didn't want to worry about trying to get into college. I needed to make money right away. So I started applying to jobs before I left the Marine Corps, like months before I left the Marine Corps. And I had one company, so I applied to all construction jobs because it was something that I already knew. And I applied to some truck driving jobs. Not that I wanted to do that, but whatever. I knew that I liked construction, so I wanted to go back to that. So I get a call one day. It was, we were in Japan, right? We were stationed in Japan. So it's like, I don't know, 9 a.m. in Japan, which was like, almost 9 p.m. here. This guy had called me and said, "Hey, I got your resume. It's pretty intense," because it was just, a bunch of stupid Marine Corps stuff, all beefed up to make it sound like I was hot shit.
I remember that the transitioning out the what is it, TRS, whatever it is.
Yeah.
They have you sit down and build out a resume, and they make you just expand and make you sound so much better on paper.
Yeah.
And then no one knows what it means.
Right. So they basically have you run through and put every word through a thesaurus, right? So you sound ridiculous. Anybody who actually knows anything reads that resume, goes, "This guy's an idiot," So, but this guy, being in construction, read all those words and went, "Why is he applying to this job if he's this crazy," right? But he called me. I guess he had called like 40 people that night because, whatever. I applied to all these jobs on Indeed. He called me back. So I'm out there. We were loading trucks up for something. I was out there I was ground guiding a couple people, and I don't remember what we were doing, but we were preparing for something. So there was a lot of stuff going on. And he calls me and asks me a bunch of questions, and I was like, "Yeah, well, I haven't been in construction in 4 years. Like, I've done a couple things in the Marine Corps while I've been here, but, I've been driving trucks." So I was like, "But I pick things up quickly. Once I get back in the groove."
So all I thought was I pick things up, I put things down.
Yeah. I do that as well. So, I was like, I whatever it is, I'm sure that I can handle it and I can get back into it, whatever realm you're in. I was primarily into framing before I left for the Marine Corps, but you and I have done everything. So this was a trim company. They were installing siding, and then trim carpentry. And I had only done a little bit of that, but I was like, I'm sure I'll pick it up pretty quick. And I was like, if you take a chance on me, whatever. And this was in end of October, beginning of November, he called me. And I wasn't due out until January 1st, right? So it was 2 months. So anyway, he talked to me, and I'll never forget on the phone, he goes, "Are you afraid of heights?" Right? And I was just talking normal. I said, "No, not at all." Or no, I said, "Not even a little bit," right? And we're just talking while I'm ground guiding somebody. I've got 17 things running through my head. And he just started dying laughing. And he said, "You know what? Because of that, I'm going to hire you." Just that comment made me laugh. "I'm going to hire you." So that's what got me my first job, was saying, "No, not even a little bit," while I was busy. I wasn't even thinking about making him laugh. It's like, "No, I'm not afraid of heights. Put me on a crane. I don't care. Dangle me from a roof. It doesn't matter. I'm going to do what needs to be done." So I got that job, got out of the Marine Corps, started there, right, on January 1st, which again, on the last episode, we talked a little bit about being cold. Let me tell you something. I get out.
Well, you got to paraphrase. So most people, Okinawa, Japan, is not mainland Japan. It's like 300 miles south. It's tropical weather. You've been stationed there for what, the last 3 years?
It's literally the Florida of Japan, except for it. You know, it did get cold a couple times there, but it wasn't. I wasn't prepared. It's not like it is here.
No, this is
different. Yeah. So
this is different.
Yeah. So I leave tropical, beautiful Japan. You know, Okinawa. We get to North Carolina for a week or two, whatever. I knew it was going to be cold there, but then we come down to Florida, and I was expecting, you know, my first day construction in Florida. I wore these big old boots, you know, because I'm used to wearing boots from New York, and a short sleeve shirt and shorts, right? Because I was like, it's Florida, it's hot. I'm gonna make this, right? January 1st, it was like 30 degrees. I had no gloves, I had no sweatshirt, I had nothing. But it was my first day, and I didn't want to look like a bitch. So I'm out there, fingers frozen, putting this trim up on the exterior of a building with my hammer, right? And I'm like touching my hammer's cold, the nails are cold, and I'm just like shaking, putting this stuff up and installing it. And these guys are, you know, just
laughing at you.
I don't know what they were thinking, but I for sure was thinking, I'm not doing this again tomorrow.
Oh, Joe Biden, that man's on drugs.
Yeah.
That's the only logical explanation for what I'm watching.
Yeah, I was greatly mistaken on what to expect when I got here. So that night, you know, I finished the first day, and he was, you know,
the
guy.
Next series of Florida Man.
Yeah, the guy was, you know, relatively impressed with, you know, my work ethic and the ability that I had from never doing that stuff before, and being out of it for 4 years. So, you know, immediately I got home. Well, not home. I was staying with my sister at the time, our sister, and she lived across the street from Walmart. I went in there and I bought gloves. I bought a sweatshirt. I bought pants. I bought everything. I was like, I'm not doing that again.
You gotta make money today. I spend it all.
Yeah. And I wasn't allowed to wear work boots anymore because we worked on top of roofs, and I was tearing up the shingles. So he said, no more. So okay. So I bought some cheap shoes. Anyway, did that for a little bit, right? I did that for about a month and a half or so, because I needed to work for a certain amount of time to buy a house to get my wife here. Because when we separated, we went to North Carolina together, stayed there for the separation process, and then I came down here, stayed with my sister, and she went up to New Hampshire to stay with her parents and pick up all of her stuff before she moved down here. And the only way she was able to come down here was if we had a house. So I needed a certain amount of time in a job before I would qualify for a loan. So I got to work, you know what I mean? I worked as much as I possibly could, and you know, I went out a couple times and helped another one of our buddies. He owns a dive shop, you know, and he does manatee tours and stuff like that. So I went out and helped him a couple times to make some extra money. So I was doing everything I could to get enough money to apply for this loan. And after a couple of weeks, my loan officer said, "You're ready to go. Let's start submitting stuff." And at that time, you know, I was doing a VA loan, and VA loans typically take like 45 to 60 days. We had picked the house. The first house I looked at was the one that we picked because I was like, I don't have time. I got to get my wife here. First house we looked at, I put an offer in. It got accepted, and within 30 days from that point, I had moved into that house. We closed on it because I was not, you know, when you and I get set on something, I'm pulling the trigger. So I mean, even when I was at work, if he asked for, oh, hey, I need this document, I'm on the roof installing stuff. I'm pulling out my phone, you know, looking up what I need to look up to send it to him because I wasn't, you know, I needed to get it done. So within 30 days, closed, got that done, and then moved my wife down here. And the day that we closed on the house, this is the worst thing I've ever done in my life, to quit a job, right? Go ahead.
I think I did the same thing.
I've never actually quit a job, you know, and moved to something else. I've never quit a job because, like, in the past, you know, I quit my jobs to go to the Marine Corps, but it wasn't like I quit them because I didn't like them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This job specifically, I quit because I had been interviewed for another job, and everybody was in my ear telling me it was a better choice because they had benefits, they had company vehicles, and it wasn't corporate, but it had that corporate feel. So I left that job doing trim And the way that I quit, this is one of the only things that I regret in life is the way that I handled it, because I went to work on a Monday and I got a call from that other company and they said, hey, you can start tomorrow. So I called up that other company and they didn't answer. So I left a voicemail and said, hey, I'm not coming back tomorrow. I was like, I cannot believe I just did that.
You didn't even go talk to the guy and go, hey man.
Couldn't. It was Monday afternoon. It was like 5, 6 o'clock. I had just closed, and actually I think they gave me the day off to get my house, to go close on the house. And then I called him that night and said, hey, I'm not coming back, and left a voicemail. Didn't even talk to him because he didn't answer. I called a couple times.
Hey, here's the day off. Go get your house. By the way.
So I'm not coming back. Yeah. So. And then I started that other job, and it was worse. You know what I mean? The first job was okay, except for if it rained, we didn't work. If the guy in charge said he didn't want to work, we didn't work. So I was losing hours, and I was trying to get this house. So I said, that's not sustainable. I can't do it. Moved to the other job. Got plenty of hours at the other job, but it was managed absolutely terribly. I mean, it was a nightmare. They were in lawsuits all the time for the stuff that they were working on, and just, and I was like, I'm not going to be a part of that. But it allowed me the opportunity to start my first business, because all I did was go out. I was basically an inspector. I would go out, sit in my truck, and watch these people work. And every hour, 2 hours, they'd say, hey, can you come test this stuff for us? So I'd go out and test it. I was testing dirt. And I'd test it, and then I'd go back in the truck and watch them work. So I'd sit in my AC all day. So I brought my laptop, and I started planning. I was like, you know what? I had seen our cousin do some work. I went and worked with him for a little bit, and I went, man, if he's able to do this and make money, I mean, I got to be able to. You know what I mean? I can do better. That was my first thought was, me and you, when we put our minds to something, we're usually able to, like you said on the last one, we give a better product. You know what I mean? So I saw him making money, and I said, all right, I can do this. He's in a different market. He's south, so I knew I wasn't competing with him. So I was pretty much made up my mind, I'm going to do it. So I started my first company, first LLC. Something that's different about Florida than New York is that there is no, in New York, you're not required to have a contractor's license to build houses or do anything big. Down here, you need a contractor's license to
do anything,
fart.
Basically. It's bad.
It's embarrassing. So I didn't know that. So I started the company and then did the research. So word to the wise, guys, don't do that. Do it the opposite way.
It's ironic because I did the same thing with mine.
Yeah. Do your research first, and then start your company. So I found out I needed a license to do all the big stuff, right? So all I was able to advertise as was a handyman company, and I was able to do light renovations, cabinetry, painting, flooring, tile work, stuff like that, trim work. That was it, not anything else. If I wanted to redo a bathroom, I legally was not allowed to. Did I do it? Of course I did, and everybody does. But legally, I wasn't supposed to be doing that stuff. So if I ever got caught, I would have been in a lot of trouble. So I did that for about a year and made every single mistake that you can make. And actually, I think it was a little over a year. It was almost 2 years, almost 2 full years that I did that. And I built up, I had 2 crews, you know what I mean? They weren't great, but they were 2 crews, and we were running, wasn't making any money. I went $10,000 into debt. Didn't quite do 30, but over 2 years, I did $10,000 in debt. I was Ubering every night. I was eating ramen 3 meals a day. I was doing everything I could to make sure that we kept our house. My wife was going to school full time. We didn't have that much money coming in. I certainly wasn't able to pay myself. So every single mistake you could possibly make.
Same thing.
I literally would use my personal credit card to go get cash to put it into my business account so I could make payroll to pay my guys.
I've been there.
Absolutely awful. And there were times for sure that I told my wife, I was like, if I don't figure this out by this date, then I'm done, right? And then as we talked about, something happens and you go, oh, I got it. Everything's good.
I was having a conversation with my wife the other day, and she goes, you know how many times you said you got it? Like, you almost there.
Oh, my gosh.
It's right there. We made it. When exactly did we make it? Because I'm still confused.
I'm still waiting on us to make it. I haven't seen it.
That bar just keeps on moving. I'm like, Yeah, I kind of.
Yeah, so I did that to my wife. I put her through that. I mean, monthly, I'd say, hey, a couple more weeks and we got this. And that lasted for 2 full years. And then I was presented with an opportunity. So that was my first company. I owned that company. I ran that company myself, $10,000 in debt. 2 years in, I meet this guy who is licensed and is willing to, the original conversations we had was he wanted to retire. You know, he was in his mid 60s or early 60s at the time and ready to just be done. But he had his license, and something I didn't have. I had the crews and the ability to produce the work, did not have the license in order to legally take the work and do it correctly. So I met him, and that was, again, a bunch of mistakes that I've made. That was one of my mistakes, is that when I met him, we had talked, and he said, yeah, I've got all these jobs coming up. I'll just give them all to you. And I said, perfect. And then I stopped looking for work. So I stopped advertising. I stopped, posting things. I just said, he's got some work for us. I'm going to take a back seat here, and I'm going to let all this work come in. And there was no work. There was 2 jobs, and that was it. And I had 2 crews. And we finished the first job, and the second job we finished, and we were out of work. So him and I decided to kind of merge our companies, although that's not exactly the way it went down. That's the way that I was expecting it to go down, but that's not the way it went down. What actually happened was I dissolved my first company and was hired onto his company as a manager. With all of my employees came with me. It didn't take but 3 or 4 months before he fired 90% of them, and we decided to let them go. But that was, honestly, hindsight, that was the right decision, because I was paying all these guys. I didn't have the money to pay them. I didn't have the work to pay them. So there was no reason to keep them, but they were good guys. You know what I mean? So anyway, I did that, took over for him, and I did that for 3 years, 3 full years, where I worked for him with the understanding and the agreement that at the end of that 3 years, I would inherit that business. He would help me get my license. He would go and retire. I would set him up. He'd be able to retire, and I would get all the experience I need to get my license, and then take that company and keep running. That also didn't happen, but it worked out for the best, because at the end of 3 years, which was last October, we sat down and decided that that's not the way we're going to do it. And so I said, okay, well, I'm going to go start my own company again. So I started my new company, which is this, CBI Contracting. And it worked out for the best, because in that 3 years, I gained all the experience necessary to get my own license, made all the mistakes on somebody else's, he was paying for all those mistakes. I learned a lot of what to do by being out in the field, having to do it all, and then a lot of how I don't want to run my company based on the way that he made me do things, right? But again, it was great, because I was a little bitter at the end of it. But you can't hold grudges. It just makes you a bad person and ruins your life. So I'm all good now, and I've got this company, and this company is running, still making mistakes, but not the expensive ones.
Well, and it's the thing is, just like you said, you have 3 years of running a company.
Yeah, exactly. I learned everything I needed to know to do this successfully on my own, which I am doing now. I was able to get my contractor's license here in Florida, which for any of you, if you know, is an absolute nightmare of a process. I was able to do that. Oh, sorry about that. Let me shut that off. I was able to do that, and now we are, building houses and everything that I've always wanted to do. So it's been an experience, and again, I'm still making mistakes, still learning, still growing, still implementing new procedures every day. So wouldn't change it for the world.
and just on top of that, you started residential. Don't you do some commercial as well now?
Yeah, I do manage a couple of commercial jobs for a commercial contractor, but I'm not allowed to do them myself. I just manage for him.
Oh, okay.
But mainly residential. I'm licensed residentially, so.
Gotcha. And only because I don't know, how much time do we have left for today?
as much time as you want. I'm just gonna have to edit that part. It did end. It was. I mean, we had 1 second left when you asked that, so I just shut it off, turned it back on. So we'll just wrap this up real quick. I'll splice these two together, and we'll be good.
Okay.
What you got?
No, I just to end it. So, you're gonna splice good here.
Oh yeah. Hey, bear with me on the editing, all right, guys, and the intro from the last one. Let's be respectful and ignore that one. Pretend that one doesn't exist.
I don't know. I don't think my intro is too much better today. But with that being said, we're gonna wrap it up today.
Yeah.
Next podcast, we will dive into more or less a subject and just go into. We'll decide. We really don't know yet.
Yeah,
it's more or less just.
I mean, I've got a ton of ideas, and we'll see. You know, if one of you, some of you, will comment, that would be great. Just let us know what topics you want us to cover. Again, we've got a list that we're gonna. I think the best way to do it is just kind of randomly pick one and just go to town. That sounded weird. We'll just go ahead and start a conversation and see where it leads us. But we've got plenty of stuff to talk about. I mean, I could talk for days and years. And like he said, whenever we get into the Marine Corps, I mean, that could last 2.5 hours, multiple times.
One story.
Yeah. So we'll play it by ear and keep running. But hopefully you guys are enjoying this stuff because I am. It's a lot of fun. So yeah, we'll close it out again, and we'll see you next time. Anything else?
Nope.
All right. Sweet.
Bye.
See you guys.